In the previous video I showed you how to make a router table using a piece of kitchen worktop. In this video I'm going to show you how I went about making a fence to go with the router table. A good accurate fence is essential when using a router table, and hopefully mine will turn out pretty accurate. For cutting the recesses in the base plate and the face plate of the router table, I've made up this little routing jig. So the bearing guided cutter will run on these surfaces. Ignore all these drawings and things all over it. This is a piece of scrap left over from some marquetry classes I was doing. Anyway, I've created this shape basically by cutting this precisely to the width I want, which is 75 millimeters, and then I've just biscuited this on, so we've got this shape created for taking the bearing guided cutter. Right, I'm going to start making the fence now, and it's going to consist of a base piece with a front and upright. I'm going to domino it, but you could biscuit it if you have biscuits, but I think domino will be stronger. And then there's going to be some false fences attached to the front, which can move backwards and forwards depending on what aperture you want around the cutter. I'm obviously going to be cutting a recess out here for the cutter to fit into. And the actual fence assembly will actually be fitting onto the router table using toggle clamps. Brilliant things, toggle clamps. I use them quite a lot when I'm making jigs and things. So the first thing to do is to cut out these recesses, and I've made up a jig for the router, so we're going to be using the same router cutter with the bearing guide at the top, and that will actually cut out that, well actually trim it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the recess shy of the line on the bandsaw, and then I'll just trim it to size using the router jig. Right, I've cut away the waste, and fitted the jig onto the piece. So all I'm going to do now is route it away using that bearing guided cutter. Quick word about dimensions. This stuff we're making the fence out of is that saying 25mm stuff that I was using for the routing out the table. This aperture 75mm wide by 26mm deep. That's for the base piece, and then the front piece, the aperture's same width. And it's 55mm high. I think those should be adequate. The false fences are made out of melamine veneered MDF, 19mm melamine veneered MDF, and I think I made them, certainly over 150, I think I made them 180 high. so that gives you a good reference when you're feeding stuff across on end. Now we need to route the slots in the face piece, which will take the bolts that run through into the false fences to allow them to slide backwards and forwards. I'm positioning these slots 65mm from the bottom of the front piece, and they're going to be 60mm long. The centres for these slots, if you take a centre on this recess here, which is the centre of the whole thing, the centres of the slots are 140mm from the centre and also 430 from the centre. So I've routed these slots, the 9mm slots, because I'm going to be using 8mm bolts for holding the fence on. So we're now ready to, I think we're now ready to domino the front to the base. So I've dominoed the fence, and we're about ready for gluing up. The dominoes are approximately 220mm centres. Should be enough. Right, I've glued up. It's very important that we get a good square edge, square here, because then the fence will be square with the tabletop, the outer tabletop. When I started off with this, I did actually machine these edges, these jointing edges on the MDF to ensure they were nice and square. So we should have a pretty good square face there. That one needs slightly adjusting. You move the clamps over a bit, you can tilt the thing over. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. This is the insert I'm going to be using. It takes an 8mm thread, but the outside of it is actually 14mm. So I'm going to use a 12mm Forstner bit to drill the holes. So I've drilled for the inserts. You'll notice I've put a little bit of a countersink on it as well. That helps to ease the insert in more easily. You may be wondering what these lines are on the back of the fence. They're not there for any functional reason, they just happen to be left over from the previous use. I was using this melamine veneered MDF for. Anyway, if we tried to put the insert in with a screwdriver, they've actually got a slot in at the top, which implies that you might want to do that. It doesn't really work because the insert tends to sort of splay over to one side. It's not vertical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it onto a piece of threaded rod, quite a long piece, which means that I can judge whether when it's going in vertically or not, and I've locked it on there with that wing nut. Right, so by making sure the threaded rod is vertical, I can get that insert to go in nice and square. And I want the insert to be slightly below the surface of the fence. And just a little bit more perhaps. and that's just about right now. So it's just about fitted up now. You'll see I've fitted the threaded rods and the wing nuts onto the threaded rods for holding the false fences, so they can now hopefully slide freely and then be tightened up by the wing nuts. The other thing I've done is I've fitted toggle clamps to the underneath. Previously I've always used G clamps to hold the router fences on, and it's never been terribly satisfactory, so I'm using these toggle clamps. Jolly useful things, toggle clamps. I've fitted 2 blocks at either end, the same thickness as the, well, slightly thinner than the worktop. If you use the same thicknesses, the clamps don't quite clamp, so you need to knock about 5mm off the width of the thickness of the worktop. So you position the fence how you want it, and then just tighten up the toggle clamp, and away you go. The last thing I need to do now is to sort out some dust extraction. So if we close in a bit, I'm going to build a little, well, that's what I think of is a little shed that fits around the back of the recess for the cutter, and I'll stick all that on with point PU glue, and then that as a hole, I've drilled a hole for my extractor pipe to go into. This pipe is 1.5 inches, and that should fit in there like that. Obviously you have to drill a hole according to what size extractor pipe you have. And that'll be the finish of that then. I do plan to make a cabinet for it to sit on eventually, rather than this rather rickety trestle that I've got it on, and I'll do another video of that later. So here's the fence actually fitted onto the router table. It's got good high long fences which make for very accurate work. You may notice that where the opening is made up, the fences have been angled, been mitered at 45 degrees, and they haven't been taken out to a very fine edge. The edge is snipped off so that it's not too delicate, because you can have a problem with the edge breaking up if you make it too fine. But it's certainly worth doing that to allow more space around the cutter. Under the base of the fence I have these chunky 75mm reach toggle clamps, which give a very firm hold for the fence onto the router table. If you want to see some drawings of the router table and the router fence, you can find them on my website, my courses website, www.christribefurniturecourses.com, where you can also find information about my courses. If you want to see details of my furniture, just go to www.christribe.co.uk. I hope you enjoy looking at that.